we've got with us Ben Lumsden from Epic Games, we've got Peter Caddick from Emotion, and Ian Forrester from the BBC, and we'll give them a little opportunity to introduce themselves in more detail in a little while. But I thought, really that to just give us set the scene for this, it's really evident from the last conversation that there are different perspectives and different technologies emerging. So different technologies are represented here in this room, around this table. The common theme is that production, delivery and consumption is changing. It's no longer 24 frames a second cell animation, is it? And actually what we're seeing is a convergence of games and animation technologies. And I thought that actually the way of doing this session would be kind of, in a sense, being a bit of show and tell. So everybody's kind of gathered together some content, short video clips, which we'll look at, and then use that as an aid to conversation. And to start that off, I thought it'd be really useful to look at what Aardman have released just in the last couple of days, which is their 1111 project, which sees them entering into games in a more serious way than they ever have done before. But I think if you're not familiar with what they've been doing, you'll see how closely this relates to their animation heritage.
Now, Mr. Dealey, I hear you've got some rather exciting news.
I have. You see, recently I was invited behind the scenes at Aardman Animation Studios, the birthplace of Shaun the Sheep, Morph, Wallace and Gromit, to find out what their creators have in store next. And I must say, you will be surprised.
But in a good way?
Oh, yes, definitely in a good way. Aardman Animation is a national institution. Things began in the mid-70s with a lovable little chap called Morph, and over the years, they've created some of our most cherished television and movie characters. But for their latest venture, they're using the latest tech to tell a historical tale. Just in time for this year's Armistice Day, Aardman Studios have teamed up with game developers Bandai Namco to work on a game set during the First World War. 1111 Memories Retold takes its name from the official last day of fighting in the Great War, the 11th of November. It's a story-driven adventure game set against the backdrop of World War I, where players assume the role of various people and animals. This includes characters from both sides of the battle, and the decisions taken dictate how the story then unfolds. Lord of the Rings star Elijah Wood voices one of the major characters, a war photographer called Harry, who gets caught up in events.
They signed me up, put me on a train to the coast. They even gave me that uniform.
Dan Effigan, the creative director of 1111, is going to tell me more about their first foray into video games.
Really, the thing that drives us all is storytelling. We just love telling stories, we like creating worlds, creating characters, and all the things that come with that. So it's kind of an obvious next step then to find new platforms to tell stories on.
With your stop motion, there is a signature. You always know that you're watching an Aardman feature. Does that carry over into 1111?
Not in the way that you recognise like Wallace and Gromit and Shaun the Sheep, but hopefully you will recognise the kind of the craft that's gone into it, the beauty, the quality, and the emotion and the storytelling. They're the Aardman-y bits that we've put in.
Cheers! And those storytelling credentials are evident, because this game isn't a first-person shooter or a battle simulation. Instead, it's a sensitive and immersive experience that's far more about the characters than the conflict itself.
How do I look? Right, I have to get back to work now.
Lead artist Alex and graphics programmer Cody are going to tell me how technology has helped to create the game's unique visuals.
I'm impressed, Harry.
It's been an amazing experience making this, a lot of learning.
Yeah.
We've had to make a bunch of custom tools, both art tools and programming tools.
For 1111, we've developed this new way of rendering where we actually overlay brushstrokes onto the original renderer. So you can see if we toggle it completely off, the game looks like this. And then we actually put the brushstrokes on top. And it's like a completely new approach of doing it that simulates the nature of paint a lot more than we've been able to before.
Right. This approach certainly gives the characters and the feel of the game an emotional warmth. It's like watching memories in motion. Things like the type of brushstroke style, direction of the paint, and even how much animation each brushstroke should have is constantly being tweaked. It really isn't just a case of putting everything in and then adding a filter.
That's actually how other games have done it in the past, and by doing it this way, we can get something that really pops.
The premise behind the game was created by BAFTA award-winning Johan Fenkies, creative director of DigixArt. Johan, do you think you'll attract a different type of gamer, perhaps someone who wouldn't have played games before?
Yeah, we have this new public who is willing to play just for one night a game, not necessarily a long experience like 50 hours of gameplay, just one night, and you enjoy a nice experience like a nice movie.
Yes.
And it's not skilled, like there's no skill of knowing exactly how works the controller with all the buttons. So it's very important.
The Major and his men stare death in the face.
But will 1111 still appeal to regular gamers? Step forward Sean Jordan. Not only is he an avid player, but he has served in our armed forces for the past 15 years. He'll be one of the privileged few to get an early go at the game.
I guess my story starts like so many others, with a girl.
Any thoughts you have as you're going through, Sean?
Visually, it is absolutely stunning. It is very pleasant change from the crisp cut lines that you do get in some modern games.
Boy, bring some wine for the Major. The good stuff, upstairs.
And in fact, all those choices, like taking the good bottle or the not good bottle, all these very tiny choices are tracked by the game.
Yes.
And so along the game, things will change depending on your choices.
Okay.
And at the end, it will have a big impact on the story.
Yeah.
Blödes Funkgerät. Kurt, du bist der Techniker. Reparier das Ding.
So now we're switching over to the other character.
That's the thing of the game, that you don't play just one guy, you will play both sides.
Get down and wait for them to reload, lad!
The way that the story is a little bit more immersive and put you in the respective characters' shoes, brilliant prospect, a very pleasant change from the usual run and gun shooter that we have, and hopefully something that would do yourself and the veterans that actually saw the conflict a world of justice.
I must admit, the war game vibe that we all know really doesn't come across in this game. It's beautiful to look at and wonderful to play through.
War in video games doesn't always have to be portrayed in the same way. You know, for the average soldier on the ground, they don't care about running around shooting people. They care about, when am I going to get home? You know, when am I going to see my family? So we really wanted to show that kind of human side of war inside this game.
I'd say they've nailed it.
The idea that actually there's a new public, as the guy put it there, that's opening up, that there's a visual style which has not yet been seen in video games, and of course the emphasis on story that comes from Aardman, and I think those are some of the things that we'd want to pick up in a short while. But I'm just going to give Ian a little opportunity to introduce himself, and he will then in turn show a video which gives some colour to the kind of work that he's been doing in the BBC.
Okay, so I'm Ian Forrester, and I work for BBC R&D in the north, in Salford Keys. So the stuff that we do is this thing we call it object-based media. It's not a very nice term, but we kind of stuck with it. The focus is always about storytelling. What it allows you to do, it allows you to basically adapt the story and adapt things around variables and around context and stuff like that. So, for example, in the video you just saw, the things that you do in the game have an effect on the overall, the kind of the final output of the game. But some of the stuff that I've been focused on is around using implicit interactions. So the fact that you are in Manchester, the fact that it is this time of day, the fact is you, to change the narrative and change or adapt the narrative and adapt what you see and what you hear. And some of that stuff has played through into some quite scary things, which we might show later in visual perceptive media. But also the key thing about what we're trying to do is we're trying to do it in a way, because we're obviously with the BBC, we're trying to do it in a way that it's open. So we're creating tools that you can use rather than kind of marvel at our amazing kind of technology. It's like, actually, this is all about stuff that we give to the public, and there will be people who take that further. So for example, I'm head of a community which is driving forward this stuff, because you've seen bits of it, but you've not seen enough of it. And we're starting to build a craft around this stuff. But it starts with building some tools, with understanding what the tool capability can do, understand what the craft is around that. Because it's no good just to go to Premiere or Final Cut Pro or whatever and just bake out another version. What we're doing is we're creating, for example, in the drama, it creates 50,000 variations. I say variations because variations is really important. It's not versions, because they're slightly different, but only slightly. And for most of the storytelling point of view, you may not notice a difference, but actually it's all about the storytelling, and it's about kind of encouraging a kind of a thought or a feeling. And you may not, so for example, one of the things that we do in visual perceptive media is change the color grade. Now for a lot of people, we've done tests on this, a lot of people don't recognize that the color grade has changed, but they feel different. And we all know how important color is. We know all this stuff. So what we're doing is we're doing that, but we're doing it so you can adapt it per person or per situation or per context. And that's quite different from kind of the mass, just one thing for everyone, which we kind of stepped away from.
Okay, so could you run story format, thanks.
Today we're at the Arnolfini in Bristol by the waterside, and we're running a workshop to test out our new object-based tools. So we've got producers and developers here in Bristol to get their hands dirty with them. Object-based is a new way of storytelling based entirely on a person's context. So that's their circumstance, the device they're using, and any preferences that they might have. And this kind of thing will enable new ways to engage with audiences. Producers can create adaptive, responsive experiences that really talk to an individual or a group of people.
I think object-based media is going to be something that a lot of people do hear about in the future, and it really allows for this adaptive storytelling, so you can really tailor your content to the person watching it.
I think the whole way that the web works is already object-based. We're kind of already used to it day to day, but it's a new thing to apply it to creating stories that are flexible and responsive, and that's very exciting, yeah.
Storyformer is a production tool that lets you sketch out your story or experience. It allows you to add content, build up scenes, and adapt in lots of different ways. You can create branching on a graphing canvas and add variables to tell bits of video when to play and when not to play. You don't need to be a coder or a developer to use the tool. It's really intuitive. Most things are drag and drop, and you can get up and running in a few minutes. It's really important that R&D collaborates with people externally by bringing tools to a workshop like this, because we can't create in isolation. We can't build tools that are usable and useful in isolation.
I'm really glad they've put on the workshop, because it's just a chance to get your hands on the tool and just play with it. And for sort of creative people like me who are really into making these sorts of stories, we don't have the tools yet, and it's really exciting to be part of them developing the tools. We've built an interactive story called 6 Minute Justice, and the idea is that you've got 6 minutes to decide who has committed this murder. So you can only see some of the evidence, so you have to decide what evidence you have to see.
It seems to be a really obvious thing to be able to have choices of how you consume that content. So what we've done is we've taken the original Narcos trailer and we've made it an enhanced trailer. So you have the choice to then find out a little bit more about the main characters. And we've actually chosen a +18 option, so we've actually got some pretty gruesome images of his real death.
Our app is called Two-Faced Bristol, and it's a tour guide app where the user actually gets to choose whether they want the perspective of a famous engineer, Brunel, or an infamous pirate, Blackbeard. It gives people a level of personalization rather than making this for one type of user in one way.
The workshops really confirmed how interested the community is in object-based experiences. We know our tools are going in the right direction, people are finding them intuitive to use, and we think this is a really good stepping stone to getting those tools out and being used day to day.
A lot of people know Epic and Unreal from the games industry. What is it that's emerging now for you in animation?
Sure. So my name's Ben. I'm here from Epic Games, and I focus on the world of media and entertainment outside of games. So people who are using our technology to create all sorts of different content that is not games. So at Epic we do two main things. We create our own games, one of which, as Andy mentioned earlier in the panel, is Fortnite, which is doing pretty well. It's the most successful game of all time as of now, which is great. And the other thing is we create technology in order to make all sorts of different interactive experiences. So everything that we put into our own games also goes into the software, into Unreal Engine. So the first thing to understand about a real-time engine is that in the video games world, we've been looking at that element of interactivity personally as Epic for 25 years. So what that means is that if you have some sort of interface, some sort of input device, you need it to react instantaneously, so within 40 milliseconds, in order to be able to really understand that it's happening in real time. So compared to traditional animation, where you might have renders and it doesn't matter how long it takes to render a particular short or cartoon, for us it has to be instantaneous. Now, when you come back to animation and you come back to linear content and use real-time tools within linear content, that opens up a world of possibilities. It means that you can use our technology to develop a piece of linear content, but at the same time you can use the tool to develop a piece of virtual reality content or a piece of augmented reality content. So essentially, if you develop within a real-time engine, such as Unreal, then it means that you can create a whole variety of different experiences at the same time. If you go in with your eyes wide open, then you can be developing for augmented reality, virtual reality, children's TV, potentially a feature film, and you can use our platform to develop for all of those different media at the same time. I suppose it's also worth telling everybody that Unreal is free. So for linear content, it's absolutely free to use. Our commercial model changed 4 years ago, where Tim Sweeney, who is our founder and who programmed the original Unreal Engine, he said, let's give Unreal Engine to the world for free. So if you want to use Unreal for any sort of TV content, you're absolutely welcome to do that. We'd encourage you to do that absolutely for free. Our commercial model works that if you sell to a consumer, if you sell a game to a consumer, then once you are successful to the tune of $3,000 per quarter, we'll start taking a small percentage of 5% royalty. So that's how our business model works, and that's specifically for games. So once again, if you want to use it for any sort of animated content, it's completely free to use. And I'm going to talk over this first video, if you don't mind running Aliar and the Legend of Macaw. So this is a feature film that came out in February, and it's the first feature film that ever to be put into cinemas that used a real-time engine, a video games engine. So this is, as you can see, it's not quite Pixar quality, but it's really good quality of animation, and I think a really beautiful testament to what's possible within the engine. So this was a Pakistani language feature film made by a team of 60 people in Islamabad, and they took 18 months to develop this. and they have a mixture of traditional animators, and they also do have some programmers. One thing that's worth noting again about our technology is that it's very artist friendly. We have what's called Blueprints, which is a visual scripting language. It's a node-based language where artists can program. So in this instance, what you're seeing, all of the animation was done outside of Unreal, but the layout, the lighting, the compositing, the rendering, all of that was done inside Unreal Engine. And I think it's testament to speak to the future of being able to put this sort of content on a variety of devices. And per the example of Fortnite, when we create Fortnite, you're able to play that on PC, on console, whether that's Switch, PlayStation or Xbox, Apple, iPads, iPhones, and Android. And you will have the ability to develop for all of these different platforms if you publish from our engine. These guys, we have what we call Unreal Dev Grants, and these guys just 2 days ago won a Dev Grant from us, which means that this 60-man team in Islamabad, not only have they never paid us a penny, but we've also given them a sizable chunk of cash to develop their next property. And you can apply for the Unreal Dev Grants again on our website, unrealengine.com.
Breaking news, folks. So, Peter, some people may be familiar with Studio Liddell, with which you have a connection very obviously, which I'd like you to explain about, but not so much about emotion. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about that and the kind of way in which the kind of content that you've been developing that has grown out of that broadcast background.
Morning all. My name's Peter Caddick. I'm Director of Virtual Reality at Emotion Group, a startup that sort of formed about a year ago and brought into its sort of umbrella Studio Liddell, who you probably, hopefully many of you know, is a 22-year-old animation and tech drawing company. And as part of the sort of structuring, Studio Liddell as a broadcast entity and an animation creation for children's television as you've known it still continues. But most of the studio are now working on content to feed a virtual reality setup that Emotion has brought. Effectively, Emotion have a number of virtual reality motion platforms, which basically means you put a headset on and something moves. So you might be sat in a chair or you might be in a bike or a car. The studio is now focused on making content for those devices and those platforms. And as part of that, the introduction of Epic Unreal, we've been using Unity for a while, and fully rendered stuff. We've combined all of the three things, shooting full video, creating animation for real-time and creating animation for running as a fully rendered animation. This is something, okay, so this is a real-time, very, very quickly developed piece of work for one of the platforms, which is a big seat effectively, and it's for the family audience. This was really more of a test to see what real-time can do. So every time this is played on a device anywhere in the country, so we've got these pods are set up at the Arndale, they're in Bristol, they're in Cardiff, they're in Newcastle, London, Birmingham, and they are moving across to different areas. So I think we've got some in America and Ireland and Spain. What we're doing is creating content now which can be viewed by people, but in 5-minute slots. It's a very short finished product that we're trying to create. So this actually is one of the latest things. This was released just before Halloween. This is all fully rendered, but part of it has a real-time carriage in it. So we're actually using, that was Unity on that one. This is all Unreal. which you'll get to see more of probably, hopefully, at some stage. This is Unity. All this is real-time except Jinx, basically. So we create a concept and we go through the whole production process in the same way that, more or less the same way that you would do for an animation. And then at the end, we deliver it in a real-time engine. And it either plays back as a movie or it plays back as real-time content. And as Ben was saying, the real-time side of things allows you to introduce, and Dean was saying, interactivity. So you can add elements of differentiation. In Orphan's Chair, there are 2 paths. So you can go through some of the rooms of an orphanage or some other rooms, depending on what happens when you sit on the chair, basically. It randomly selects one of 2 paths.
I mean, hopefully that gives you a sort of an interesting grounding about what's happening in this city in particular, but some of the opportunities around the new technology. So just to open it up a little bit, where are we now? What are the changes, the significant changes that you've seen recently? Because it seems to me that actually, you know, from the point of view of a university, you know, when we're thinking about the curriculum, the technology is moving so quickly that actually we're all running to keep up, and I guess that's true in the commercial sector as well. So, what are the kind of the big leaps do you think that we've seen in recent times?
Do you mean, and you're talking about this specifically in relation to students?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think in terms of production, really. I mean, I'm just
Right.
saying it's difficult for universities to keep
Sure.
up with that. And,
Well,
you know, and similarly, kind of, you know, in the commercial sector,
Well,
it's kind of, you know, there's stuff coming around all the time.
Yeah,
you know, we heard discussion about Magic Leap. You know,
Yeah.
and who knows where that's going to go? I mean, you know,
I totally agree, and I think we touched a little bit, or the panel before us touched on this a little bit, but I think the core skills and the core elements of storytelling are always going to be there. And I think Andy Wood from Cubic Motion talked about how, you know, even though they're getting a lot of additional computer power and a lot of clever AI that's going to help their content, they still need a lot of artist power. And I think when I talk to various schools around the country, I'm always saying we absolutely are always going to need the key artistic storytelling, animation skills. That's always going to be a part of it. I think there are drastic changes happening in terms of where the content's going to go, in terms of distribution platforms, etc. But I think the core skills behind a lot of it are going to remain the same.
I think one of the exciting things is that there is so much change going on because of new frontiers being broken through. So virtual reality is now a thing. Augmented reality has been a thing for a long time. People started to take notice when Pokemon Go became a big game. So people have started to look at the tech, look at the content and go, wow, is actually the normal way we tell a story the right way to tell a story now? Or is there a new way? Or is there a better way? Or is there something else that nobody's known before? And so these new frontiers, particularly for students who've, you know, got the ability to have time to look deeper into things that they're interested in, I think that's a great opportunity for them. And the tech that's being developed by the Beeb, the tech that's being developed by Epic and Unity, allow people, and I was trying to work out if I'm allowed to say this, but democratizing the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
So that, you know, if you are a single person, it's possible. It's possible to get hold of something and tell the story you want to tell using software and good kit. And it's not an impossible thing anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know.
Yeah, I think the democratization of this kind of stuff is really important because one of my aims is for school kids to be able to create the stuff that you've done, the stuff that we're doing, you know, and not have it being this kind of very specialized area. I think there will be a craft and there will be experts who are really good at it, but there will be the access to the tools and stuff like that is really important, and that's why we're creating tools. The other thing I would say, and I think this probably answers some of your question, is whenever I talk to people about the story, and I think the story is key, everyone still, we kind of gone through this whole period where we got so used to the story being this kind of one story. And what you're seeing with some of the game world stuff is that you have to build the world, and you then craft your narrative through it. Because then that allows you that flexibility so that when things do change, or the person maybe doesn't want to go down a certain path. And I don't mean, and one of the things I really want to be clear of, we're not talking about branching narrative, because branching narrative has been tried a million times. I know Netflix are trying some stuff now, but the stuff that we're doing is not branching narrative. It's different. And I think that there's the opportunity, especially when you're in a games engine, to do much more cleverer things than just branch the narrative. I think there's much more clever things, but that all comes down to that story world, which we need to get students and everyone here to think about, needs to be strong, it needs to be important. They need to think about that world and then craft your narrative.
So how's this going down inside the BBC with your colleagues? You're amongst friends here.
Yeah.
No, but I mean,
No,
if you've been making wildlife documentaries for 20 years, it's quite a big kind of change, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, and this is one of the things that I always do. So I always say to people who have been building, creating kind of documentaries, and they kind of are used to telling a story or drama, and they got to have this certain build-up and then a certain amount of whatever, and then there's like a kind of payoff, and they know the structure, right? One of the things I will say is that let's talk about the campfire. Does everyone know what I mean by the campfire?
Yeah.
Campfire storytelling, oral storytelling. Your audience are not just listening, they're also partaking in the story. How does that change things? When you start thinking about it that way, suddenly things change. What happens if suddenly your audience starts to drift off? What do you do differently? It's those kind of things. And really, what we're close to, and I think this is what my role in the BBC is in particular is about we now have the opportunity with these kind of technologies, especially the internet, to tell stories which are closer to oral storytelling, like someone telling you the story. So how does that look when you are a 5-year-old kind of under the pillows, kind of like looking at your iPad? How does that look compared to when you're watching it on a screen in front of your parents? Maybe it's the same thing, maybe it's different. It's those kind of things that we can now do. And those are the things that, if you're the storyteller and you are under the covers as well, and you're telling a story, what would you do differently?
Interesting, yes. So, Peter, how is this kind of emerging technology, how's it beginning to change production for you?
So, production is pretty similar to what it was previously. I'd say it's probably about 80% the same. There are some things you can do in a game engine that you might just do in the game engine, so you wouldn't do those in Premiere or whatever, or After Effects or whatever you want to, or the software you want to bring. But the main production, animation, character development, concepting, voice, music, it's all actually pretty much the same as you would get for standard, normal media, normal broadcast media. So what we've been exploring, because we're in the virtual reality realm, is the fact that, and you guys will be aware of this, and maybe some people out here as well, you're not now looking at, from our point of view, you're not now being told where to look. You haven't got a screen in front of you. You've got a 360-degree scene. So in some respects, you have to build a bit more. You have to actually, as Ian was saying, you have to generate the whole scene, and then wherever you are in that scene, you can look anywhere and still see, still be immersed, still see the scene. Something that was interesting I read over the weekend, I can't remember the reference, maybe one of the guys can remember this if you've read it. Somebody's introducing AI into non-player characters. So you could have a story, and depending on how you react, it will react on the spur of the moment in a different way, perhaps, which is, again, something that Ian's team are working on. So how you have to think about writing the story and creating the media for the story may be different as well. Yeah. I think the end, you know, where is the end? Who knows? Is there a conclusion? Does it? How do you get episodic storytelling through this kind of thing?
Maybe one episode.
Yeah.
It's
so
entirety.
It's very interesting.
And I guess we've seen that probably since the days of Mist, haven't we? Really.
Yeah, and I think it's great because as you get, you know, new students coming through, they'll have their own ideas. Yeah. They'll have new inputs, and that will feed what's already there and allow it to grow even more, that's terrific. And you know, I'm looking forward to it.
So Ben, you've highlighted another couple of clips that actually show some of the tools that are available now in real time for producers. So a lot of the modelling aspects are kind of, you know, they're now becoming kind of real time through real time mocap. I wonder if we could run the Babylon clip and maybe you can talk over this.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so this is one of our licensees. It's a company called Kite and Lightning, who are making a video game.
All right, guys. Well, I'm
I'll let him
very,
explain
very
this first bit.
To be here and show you guys a really cool real-time mocap setup that I've been working on that I think has a lot of potential for bringing virtual characters to life in a very easy way. And so to help us out with that, I got Maniacal here. He's one of the wild and crazy immortal babies from our up-and-coming game called Babylon. Now this setup's based on 4 pieces of off-the-shelf technology, all working together in real time to create everything that you're seeing right here. So we got an iPhone 10 strapped to a $40 paintball helmet. That's doing all the face capture. We got this really cool inertia-based full-body mocap suit by Xsense that's capturing the body. And then we've got the Unreal Engine that's basically hosting the whole setup as well as making everything look super beautiful.
I'll explain a little bit more about what's going on here. So, so this is Casey from Kite and Lightning, and Corey from Kite and Lightning, and as you can see, he's literally strapped an iPhone to a helmet, and the technology that's driving his facial capture, his facial animation, it's similar to the technology that the Cubic Motion guys were talking about earlier and showing with the Siren Digital Human demo, but this is literally being driven by consumer equipment. You know, for £1,000, an iPhone X, you've got this very sophisticated facial animation happening in real time, and it's the same technology as the Animoji technology. So if you send a friend of yours, you know, an animated emoji, and this, I think, will democratize. To your point, Ian, I think absolutely this sort of thing. Our engine is free. You can get this consumer piece of equipment and get this level of facial capture. I think we're going to see a lot more of this sort of stuff in the future. I mean, the perhaps not quite so weird and freaky as this example, but I think slightly disingenuous in terms of saying that it's all consumer equipment, because the Xsense suit he's wearing there is $30,000, but there is certainly body motion capture systems now. You can get the Perception Neuron or the Rococo, the NanSense, which are all, you know, in the $1,000 to $4,000 or pounds range.
But these guys are animators, so they could animate it as well.
Well, of course, but absolutely. But the point is that you can not only can you just animate it full stop, but you can also take this as a starting point and animate on top and polish. You know, this is you know.
Okay, well, we're moving towards the end of our time, and actually I think I wanted to show just the final video here, which is, I think, worth seeing in its entirety, which is the video ray trace And this really, I think, shows some of the potential for how production tools are likely to change using this new technology. And I think some of this is amazing, actually.
Yeah, this is using our new real-time ray tracing, which is going to be coming out in March next year.
So I'm Mullen. Tonight, Grayson, Gavin, and I are going to be showing off some of the production techniques we use to create a real-time ray tracing demo we call Reflections. That demo is playing behind me right now in real time in Unreal Engine. I'm going to enter Unreal Editor in VR mode and join Gavin and Grayson in the set we used to create this demo. There's Gavin. Mullen. He's wearing an X-Sense mocap suit. He'll be playing one of our stormtroopers tonight. He's also in VR, so we can see each other. And there's Grayson.
Hey there, guys.
He's using Unreal Editor in desktop mode. The three of us will be working together to reshoot and adjust a moment from the demo in real time. We'll also bring up a live ray traced view so you can see final picture quality as we work. So, Grayson, let's call up the existing performances and cameras.
Okay, you got it.
When we first created this demo, Gavin played all three characters himself, layering mocap one after the other while in VR, which is really cool because it means he could basically perform against his own performances as if he's standing next to them. We'll show that workflow right now by reshooting just one moment for this trooper right here.
All right, the tall white one.
So Grayson, let's scrub to the part where we first see Phasma, please.
Sure.
So Gavin, when this trooper turns around and notices Phasma, this time around, let's try a bigger reaction than last time.
Okay, bigger.
Grayson, let's play back the old performance.
I heard Kylo Ren destroyed the one over in D sector. If you ask me, who's ever in charge of this place should be transferred to Hoth. What?
Okay, got it.
Got it? Cool. Let's rewind. We'll hide the old performance.
Okay.
And let's give a mark for Gavin to start on. Cool. Let's get Gavin into costume, please.
Oh, well, that's pretty cool. Look at that.
And I'm going to set up a camera here. And we'll just use that as a wide master view for now. We can go and adjust that later after we've recorded the new performance. I'm going to bring up a monitor of the camera we just set up. And I think we're ready to record.
Okay, recording in 3, 2, 1, recording.
I heard Kylo Ren destroyed the one over in D sector.
If you ask me, who's ever in charge of this place should be transferred to Hoth. What?
And cut.
And cut.
Great. So let's see playback on that.
Okay, you got it.
If you ask me, who's ever in charge of this place should be transferred to Hoth. What?
Cool. So we got that. Gavin, you can hop out of VR if you want.
Thank you.
And now that we have a new performance, we'll tweak a couple of other things. So let's add a light. And we'll put a bit of a rim light on this trooper right here. Just about there. And we'll have another look at our camera. And we're a little bit close here. Do we want to? Oh, we're going to. Oh, I see. Sorry, we're on a 70. Yeah, there we go. So we're a bit wide on this. Let's go closer to 75.
Okay, go into 75.
Cool. And we'll pull focus during the shot from the trooper to Phasma. So let's open the elevator doors.
Okay, you got it.
And pull deep. Great. So we have those two focus points. Let's rewind.
Okay.
And roll camera.
Okay. Rolling in 3, 2, 1. Rolling.
If you ask me, who's ever in charge of this place should be transferred to Hoth. What?
And cut.
And cut.
Great. Grayson, let's drop this new take into the cut.
Okay, you got it.
So in the last few minutes, we recorded a new performance. we adjusted the lighting, and we set up a new camera for a shot. And Grayson's working on showing us that new content now in Unreal Editor in the context of the sequence.
So this was an incredibly fun project for all of us. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and the ability to step into VR and in Star Wars and record multiple performances was just a dream come true.
And obviously, making content like this, takes a whole really talented team. There's a bunch of them right here. And the nice thing with multi-user functionality is that a whole team of people can work together in the same scene at the same time, just like we do on a film set. And that multi-user functionality will be available to everyone in an upcoming release of Unreal. One more note about the ray tracing. When we first generated this content in the spring, it was running on an NVIDIA DGX workstation with 4 Tesla 100 GPUs. But the ray tracing you saw today and the sequence you're about to see is running on just one NVIDIA Quadro RTX. Grayson, how are we doing?
I think we're good to go.
Let's see it.
What's the story with all the elevators lately? I heard Kylo Ren destroyed the one over in D sector. If you ask me, who's ever in charge of this place should be transferred to Hoth. What? What? You think she heard us? Yeah, I think she heard us. At least we blend in for once.
All right, that's the end of our demo. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
So we've got a few minutes now. I hope that's been informative, kind of given a bit of insight. There are clearly some people who are top of the tree in terms of this emerging technology. Do you have any questions for any of them?
Hello. I was wondering, how do you see this impacting the typical production process? Do you think it's going to work in terms of creating kind of lower cost animation more quickly, or is it going to be mixed with high-end typical kind of animation refinement type work? How do you see these kind of merging?
I think there's a couple of ways it'll go. I think that it's all striving to meet the sort of fully rendered, finished look, and it's getting there. It's not there. There are lots of subtleties in fully rendered imagery that you can't get in real time. But I think that people start to adopt it for other purposes. They'll find new ways to use it, what we were talking about before. If you are a sole developer or a team of people, you can optimize the way you work, the process works. We've just recently finished a project which would have taken a number of years longer to render than it actually did. Years. I think, I might be wrong, somebody can help me. I think it was 19 million frames, and we'd have had to start 3 or 4 years ago to get it to a deadline. Instead, we used Unreal as the render engine, and we were rendering many more frames, a minute than we would have been. Well, you wouldn't have been rendering in a minute. There's obviously a sort of a final look that's not the same, but it was more than good enough. So that's quite interesting. If you're talking about interactivity, at the minute, we're experimenting with things like fully rendered and combining real time with it. How do you do that? What's the best opportunity there? I have a suspicion that it'll come this way from fully rendered. I think that fully rendered will maybe become a bit interactive. I think we tried it before and it was a bit dodgy. CDI and stuff in the 80s and many years ago was a sort of an attempt to do that. Sort of immersive, interactive, looking fantastic, but you get choices. Dragon's Lair and Space Ace were 2 examples in the arcades, running off a laser disc, and you could switch. It's very different than Ian's technology, which is obviously leap years ahead now. The other thing I was thinking about, because I was thinking about this over the weekend, if anybody was around when video editing was £400–500 an hour, and then Avid went, hey, you could do this, and Media 100 came out, and everybody went, actually, we don't need to go to a post-production house. We can actually do it internally now. So companies that were going out and spending huge budgets on editing and special effects can actually do that now themselves. The danger from the studio's point of view, not our studios, we're in a slightly different position, but a studio's position is that if this technology is that good, you kind of have an opportunity to do it internally. And that could cost a lot less and could take a lot less time. It's going to require some skills that you probably don't have yet, but I think that that's a possibility.
Still about the story, isn't it? It's still about.
It's all about and you still have to have all those 80% of what is what I was saying before.
I mean, I think that there's a real big opportunity, especially when you are able to do this in real time. And it doesn't have to be like super perfect, but one of the things that we're really interested in is that you kind of go from kind of sit back watching this amazing thing to leaning forward, picking up a controller, and you're just playing it, and then you put the controller down and you lean back, and it should be a seamless experience because you're using the exact same engine to drive the whole thing. There's no kind of like jump from one thing to another. It's the same thing. It's just a matter of how your context about what you want to do.
That was what was interesting for me about how that Aardman project was described. It's clearly, as they said, it's a new kind of audience there, and I guess it's those people who are sit back, who are attracted to that as well.
The target platform that you're delivering to, although you can deliver with Unreal, Unity, and Storyformer, is that what its name, to all these different platforms, the audience that you're talking to may be quite different. So you may have somebody who wants to interact. You may have somebody who wants to watch something that doesn't want to interact. And those opportunities are infinite almost, really, because we created a piece earlier this year, which is Realtime, 360 in VR, called Aurora, which is actually, I think it's at the Animation Festival this week. And it's just won an award for outstanding immersive content in VR, which is very nice. But that's a particular audience again. That's more a short. But it was fully developed in Unity. All the tools that we used were the same tools that you guys will be using. So Max, Maya, I think, I'm thinking it was developed in Unity, but I'm trying to work out whether we did. I can't think if we use. There was another bit of software which has slipped my mind. But effectively, it's the same sort of pipeline that you would have for a production studio. And just the delivery mechanism becomes slightly different. Unreal and Unity make it very easy to drop animations in, and they just seamlessly work. And you can blend them, so you can have characters walking, idling, moving around, talking, meeting other characters, and using the sort of stuff that Ian's talking about with Storyform. The interaction side of it can be infinite. So the world's, for students certainly, it's a fantastic new
production companies too. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll draw a close with the news from Peter that the opportunities are infinite.
So
I hope that's
is that bad?
I hope that's been informative and interesting for you, and I'd like you to thank the contributors here in the usual way. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, cheers.